Okay, I've already mentioned Jose or Bill Melendez, and he had actually produced a documentary about Willie Mays, one of the greatest baseball players of all time. He happened to be flipping through something that had Charlie Brown in it, and he wondered maybe he should do a documentary about the worst baseball player of all time. I'm told that's how the story went. Now, Mendelsohn went to work on a documentary about Charlie Brown, calling it A Boy Named Charlie Brown. This is not related to the 1969 film of the same name. If you want to watch the documentary of that, I found it online, and I'm surprised that it never got picked up by any network. I'm serious, nobody wanted it. Boy, if that ain't a Charlie Brown thing. Anyway, I was surprised that the animations on it looked very... They looked like the type that I saw on the Christmas special. Okay, so while Mendelsohn was working on this documentary, he heard a tune on the radio called Cast Your Fate to the Wind by Vince Guaraldi, a jazz musician. And they agreed to work together. And I'm told Vince created this one song that while he was creating it, he was so excited about it, he called Bill Melendez and basically said, I got this song. I don't know. It's he thought this song was just one of those things where just the stars aligned. And the song was that Linus and Lucy song. I can't really play it here due to like YouTube copyright and stuff like that. But you know the song, okay? And they heard that song and they thought, that is Charlie Brown and his friends. And it is. So by 1965, Charlie Brown and his friends made the cover of Time magazine, which is still big news, even today. They were also on a cover of Time magazine about sex education, and that was later. That was in the 80s. We'll get there. So with Melendez and Guaraldi and Sparky found his creative team for bringing the Peanuts characters onto television. They were contacted by Coca-Cola ad agency McCann Erickson to make a Christmas special. Now, this special had to be done in a few months because Mendelsohn had kind of lied to the agency and said like, "Oh yeah, we got a Christmas special," and then he called Charles Schulz and kind of said like, "Coca-Cola bought it, but we only have 6 months to do it." I'm told Charles Schulz actually wrote the Christmas special in the space of about a week. And they were given, $76,000 to do it, which, yeah, that probably was a lot of money back then. So if you're wondering why the Charlie Brown Christmas special looks kind of cheap in some places, that's why. Okay, at the time, the Charlie Brown Christmas special aired on CBS, who almost didn't air it. They were kind of, they didn't really know what to expect of it, that they thought there would be Santa Claus on it, and they thought that there would be not any mention of scripture, which, if you know the Charlie Brown Christmas special, which I actually talked about last Christmas, there's a lot of that. Also, the Charlie Brown Christmas has no laugh track, which is what they wanted, because most of the sitcoms and the stuff that was on television was really addicted to that back then. But I believe that the team creating it really insisted that there not be a laugh track. And yeah, I think that would change to the whole special if there was one, really. Anyway, that Christmas special did really great, and you can still watch it today, and it still works, I think. It did so well that they ordered 4 more specials after that. So yeah, Charlie Brown became a TV star, and they even had a float in the Macy's Parade with Snoopy, which I think they still do that every year. Okay, shortly around that time in the 60s, Charles Schulz father passed away, and his studio actually caught on fire because at the time I think Charles Schulz had his house, then he had like a separate house that he did his comic strip in, and that burned down. And there's even a comic strip that has Snoopy's doghouse burned down that is kind of inspired by that. So yeah, see what Sparky did there? So yeah, in addition to being a TV star and soon-to-be movie star, there was actually the Broadway play, Your Good Man, Charlie Brown. Ran for quite a while. They've had several revivals of it, and there's even been an animated adaptation of it. Some of the songs are really well loved, and chances are, if you live in any town your local theater group has probably done a version of it. And the strip never declined in quality around this time, especially when Peppermint Patty's introduced. And she's such a great character. And you can't talk about Peppermint Patty without talking about Marcy, who came by a few months later, I believe. Sparky loved Peppermint Patty so much that he wanted to actually have like a spin-off strip about her. But that never really happened. He was pretty busy at the time, and although, I mean, he kept himself I think he kept himself on a very 9-to-5 pace, but he didn't try to overwork himself. He did have a hand in doing all the specials and movies and stuff like that. He even wrote a bestseller with the Happiness is a Warm Puppy. I'm told that like hit the bestseller list, and it took him, I'm told, an hour to write. Now I've actually read this book, and it's not very long. It's just basically like happiness is something, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know how many pages it has. I mean, so I can see that he could write in an hour, but, hey. So yeah, Schulz was a busy man, and, but I saw a recent documentary about him that was done around that time, and it shows him going through his routine, him carpooling kids to school, and then going to his workplace and doing the strip, and how some days he wouldn't have any ideas at all, wouldn't do anything. Some days he would have a lot. I think his life was kind of like that. Okay, so in 1968, after the death of Martin Luther King, Charlie Brown added Franklin to the script, who was a black character. Now, Franklin was a response to a fan letter, and I've heard several times that Sparky loved getting mail about the strip. He would often go through it, sometimes even answering the mail, or answering the letters and requests, and this is one where he did so and added Franklin to the strip. Okay, from what I heard, Schulz faced a lot of blowback with Franklin. There were certain newspapers that didn't post some of Schulz's strips that day because they have one where Franklin is in school with Peppermint Patty. And some of these papers were in towns that still had segregated schools, so you can kind of see the conflict going here. So, yeah. Now, I've heard stories about how some people have said, like, you need to get rid of that character, but Charles Schulz basically said, no, Franklin stays. And if you thought the Charlie Brown and Peanut strip had success on Earth, they were actually in space. The Apollo 10 program actually had nicknames based on Schulz's creations. The lunar module was called Snoopy, and Charlie Brown was the name of the command module. Isn't that funny? That just is. Okay, by the end of the 60s, Charlie Brown was in 745 newspapers. Now, I was born in 1971, so my first encounter with Charlie Brown came through the specials and the movies, and there were many. And they were old when I was young, but they weren't that old. I mean, by the time, I remember thinking like, there was a special for every holiday after Christmas. The Halloween special was a must-watch. Then there was like the Easter Beagle one, not really as good. I remember there was like, I remember one time when Thanksgiving passed, I was thinking like, surely there's a Charlie Brown Thanksgiving special. And I remember this happened. My sister told me, like, while you were watching Mork and Mindy, they were airing the Charlie Brown Thanksgiving special. And I was so upset. I was really freaking upset because that episode of Mork and Mindy that I watched that night was so bad. I mean, eventually they just ran out of all the holidays. I think there's like an Arbor Day special, which I don't think I've ever really watched. And some of the specials are basically based on long-running stories in the strips. And some of them kind of went in their own directions. Of course, the specials and what you see in the movies are not canon with the strips, just whatever you might, but that makes a lot of sense. So, but I still look forward to seeing whatever specials they had back then. Okay, so they made like 4 animated movies through the space of 1969 through 1980, and they were on TV a lot, specifically A Boy Named Charlie Brown, and It's probably the best of them, I think. I mean, it's the one where Charlie Brown kind of goes to a national spelling bee, and that one, I think that one really kind of shows its time. There's a lot of scenes in that thing where the animation gets really rainbow and weird kind of 60s sort of style. I don't know how to explain it other than that. There's a weird scene at the end with the spelling bee where for some reason all the heads are just kind of floating there, and when they get a word wrong and they spell it wrong, they just disappear or pop or something like that. It was probably done for budgetary constraints, but anyway, I shouldn't go off on tangents. The important part of this one is that I really think this captures the spirit of Charlie Brown a lot. Charlie Brown almost wins, and he messes up on such a simple thing of misspelling the breed of his dog, Beagle, and comes home in shame. And there's just this scene where it's Linus who encourages him to come out of his funk. And even though Lucy pulls the football away from him yet again, she still says, "Welcome back, Charlie Brown." She does it in a Lucy sort of way. And it's such a great way of ending the film. There's another video I'm going to recommend from a man named Toon Tariq about this movie, who really did a good job at analyzing how deep this film really is. So I really think that this, as far as yes, I grew up reading the strips and watching these specials, but this movie really captured the Charlie Brown as we know it. Okay, in 1972, there was Snoopy Come Home, and that's just a sad special. I mean, it begins with Snoopy going away after receiving a letter, and he and Woodstock go to find Lila, who, as it turns out, is Snoopy's original owner. Hello, Redcon. Anyway, so Lila is sick with something, but Snoopy promises to move back with Lila after she gets better, and then so he's going to leave Charlie Brown, and there's this one party scene where they're all singing goodbye to Snoopy, and they're all crying, and then Charlie Brown can't take it anymore, and there's just the depths of sadness this thing goes to, because when you're a kid, losing your dog is terrible, and this special really goes there. And anyway, so Snoopy does come back to Charlie Brown, because apparently he can't live with Lila, because the thing has "No dogs allowed" written on the apartment. You know it if you've seen it, so just yeah. There's always like Race for Your Life, Charlie Brown in 1977. This has the kids going to camp, gets involved with a boat race with these group of other mean kids, and I don't really, I don't know if it's the weakest of the things, but there's a pattern in all these Charlie Brown movies, is they tend to leave the neighborhood they're in so they can go other places. This seems to happen whenever shows go to movie format. They always leave the town that they're normally take place in. So I don't really remember. I remember liking this one a lot when I first saw it, but I saw it at my grandma's when I was like in, I don't know, first or second grade. So, And then the last one, Bon Voyage, Charlie Brown, and Don't Ever Come Back is the subtitle, parenthetical, whatever. But this one was kind of had Charlie Brown, Marcy, Peppermint Patty, and Linus go to France for a student exchange program. Snoopy comes along for the ride, along with Woodstock, and drives a car. And you see actually adults in this thing, and once again, this is one of those times where they kind of try and break out of the box. And this one really, I think this, until the Peanuts movie, this was the last theatrical release of Charlie Brown and his friends. I should definitely bring up that Bon Voyage Charlie Brown actually has a follow-up. I think it actually has two follow-ups. But one of them was done in the 80s called What We Have Learned, Charlie Brown. And it has the team leaving France on their way home, and they pass through a lot of World War II monuments. And it's pretty clear that Schulz wanted to do this as a commemoration of his time in the war. And I even remember the special starting out with Charles Schulz talking about it. And it might have premiered on Memorial Day. I don't really remember. I do remember seeing it because it had a lot of like live action footage of the war, and so it was a bit different and a bit more reverent, but it was all right. I have to sometimes I have to One of the problems with the Peanuts thing, I feel like there's certain levels you shouldn't take them. Like, you shouldn't show adults, but this special actually had an adult in it. Like, you see an adult right there. So they were breaking the rule right from the get-go. I don't know, but I still think that Schulz had the right to show his reverence. This wasn't the last time. There were several times where he had photos from the war in the Peanut strip. Like I said, the war did affect Schulz. So yeah, a lot of the specials just kind of got worse and worse during the 80s. There was one called It's Magic, Charlie Brown, where Snoopy goes to the library and learns magic, and he must learn real magic because he turns Charlie Brown invisible. And yeah, I mean, I get the fact that Snoopy does things a normal dog doesn't do, but there's lines that you don't cross in this, and they really just... Still though, I mean, those were later specials, but even in my grade school days, I pretty much learned to read with Charlie Brown and Snoopy books.